question Biden's ability to win, but are they working behind the scenes to rig the election in November? Orrin McIntyre is author of The Total State: How Liberal Democracies Become Tyrannies, joining me now with more. Orrin, thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's talk about it. You have the polls showing that Biden's actually bouncing back a little bit in response to changing economic conditions. 538 is changing their poll prediction, saying that Biden could win by 3 points. In fact, he says in a majority, 562 of the 1,000 simulations that they run, that the majority of them, 562 of them, show Biden winning. How's that possible?
Yeah, I would be very skeptical of the results of 538. Many people have called their current modeling into question, and I believe that 3 points is still within the margin of error. So we're really not talking about a statistically significant lead at this moment. We also don't know what the lagging effects of the attempted Trump assassination are. We don't know how this is going to reflect itself. This is an unprecedented event, and so trying to go ahead and capture it with classical methods of polling is something that's very difficult. I would not be surprised if, much like we saw in the original Trump election, polls were off radically because so many people in that initial 2016 election were very worried about voicing their support for Donald Trump. And right now, you probably have a number of people who would not normally vote for Trump, but have seen what has happened, has seen his response under fire, and are thinking to themselves, I'm not going to tell my family this. I'm not going to tell my friends this, but I've changed my mind. I think I'm going to support the guy who can take a bullet and stand back up, not the guy who can barely stay awake at the teleprompter.
So I love the fact that you're highlighting this reticence. And I don't think it's cowardice. I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here. And I think it's a pretty sturdy limb. And I'm going to say that people avoiding announcing to their families the next time they see them at an event or, maybe around the dinner table, they get together and they have a meal, voicing the fact that you switched your vote to Trump in a family situation, in a public situation at work. The backlash from leftists has been so unhinged. The level of emotional vitriol that you see, it's instant. It's like lighting a flame and dropping it onto tinder. It doesn't just light up a little. They don't warm up to disliking your decision. They instantly become enraged. Spit flies from their mouth. Their eyes get bloodshot. It's such a change. You can watch a person who literally has the temperament of a librarian turn into a rabid, screaming individual, unhinged at the very mention of the name Trump. I think it's actually smart, which means we really can't trust much, can we, Orrin, in the way of predictions here?
No, I think that's correct. You have to remember that several prominent celebrities and many different political operatives and such came out and immediately expressed disappointment that Donald Trump had not been killed by the bullet. When you have people who are that rabid, that demented about Donald Trump, they have that much of a Trump derangement system. If you're related to those people, if you have to work with those people, are you really going to publicly announce to the kind of guy who's saying, I wish Donald Trump had gotten hit by that bullet, that, by the way, oh no, I'm voting for this guy? No, you're probably thinking to yourself, once I get into the ballot box, that's when I'm going to go ahead and share that opinion for the sake of holding this relationship together, holding onto this job, keeping, Thanksgiving being Thanksgiving. Maybe I'll just hold on to that opinion until I can go ahead and express it in a place where it's going to matter, like the voting booth.
Yeah, so with a movement like that, which could be considerable, and in light of the assassination attempt, I think there's a change in the atmosphere in the country because there was another thing that happened, Orrin, that I thought was interesting. And I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. As we were all reeling from the video of him narrowly missing his head being blown off and then standing up and chanting, fight, fight, and changing the entire mood, there are thousands of people there who were, some of them screaming, some of them crying. I mean, it was pandemonium. And when he stood up and put his hand out and said, wait, and said, fight, 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 he didn't even yell it. He just said it, almost mouthed it to himself. You could hear people in the crowd. All of a sudden, they were unified again. The screaming stopped. Everyone's mood kind of congealed around what he said. And they watched him get hustled off the stage. And then there was an orderly retreat. They wanted to empty out the ground so they could begin an investigation. And people just orderly, they left as if it was a concert that had just ended. And then For the next 24 hours, there was no rioting, no looting, no burning, no police stations, no Democrat Party headquarters, no anything affiliated, that would be a representation of the Democrats. No Planned Parenthoods were hit. I mean, there was no violence in the aftermath of this obvious attempt to rob 50% of Americans of their political choice. Um, I'm 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 flabbergasted by it because I thought there might be something. There's been nothing.
Yeah, there couldn't be really a more powerful contrast between the left and the right than what we see here. The left destroyed several cities in the United States, burned down neighborhoods, burned down businesses, killed people in response to the fact that a drug addict died in police custody. And now we have a situation where the leading presidential candidate of the United States was almost killed by the bullet of an assassin. And the right, like you said, there's no riots, there's no retribution. They simply say, we need to do better. We need to come together. In a sane country, this would be a moment where everyone would go ahead and coalesce around the president. They would recognize that a man being hit like this, and instead of running, instead of hiding, instead of scurrying off the stage, he didn't know that the shooter was dead. He didn't know that he was safe. And still, he struggles to his feet and he has to be dragged off of the stage by the Secret Service as he holds his hand aloft, chanting, fight, fight. That's the kind of image in a healthy country that you could rally around, that would unify you. It's very sad that we're at the state where we're in, where the left cannot recognize this possible moment of national healing. But I'm glad to see that Trump recognizes that needs to be the message going forward. And that doesn't mean that the right should not be using important tools of power to win this election, but it does mean that they recognize this moment of leadership that is offered to us by Trump's approach to this situation.
So I gotta say, and I thought this was interesting as well. And the points you're making, Oren, are well placed. There's a lot to think about, but there's just when you say stark difference, I don't know that we possess the words in our prodigious English language to fully outline how stark it really is. Looting, burning, violence, pillaging, basically barbarism, in comparison to silent resolve. And this is the second time we've seen it recently, because when President Trump was convicted on 34 counts in the New York court in the hush money sham trial, we saw $400 million pour into his reelection effort. It was just an instant $54 million within hours, and the money just continued to pour in. It got to the place where people in media stopped reporting on it because the numbers were staggering and it was embarrassing for them, I think. Every month since Laura Trump and Mr. Watley have taken over the chairmanship and co-chairmanship of the RNC have been record fundraising months. The Republicans have outraised the Democrats, which is unheard of. Democrats usually outraise Republicans easily. And then the most recent thing, which I wanted to get your take on, Elon Musk announcing 45 million. He said around 45 million, Oren, because when you're the richest man on the planet, around 45 million is a thing, a month until the election. What do you make of that announcement?
That's huge. Look, the fact that Elon Musk bought Twitter might have been the largest right-wing coup in a long time. And Elon Musk isn't even really that right-wing. But the fact, of course, that even during the shooting, the mainstream media was lying about what had happened. We saw those ridiculous headlines about how Trump may have fallen down. He might have gotten startled. He seems to be slightly injured, right? But if you went to Twitter, you could see the real news. You could see what was actually happening. There's no longer that monopoly on what's going on. And the fact that Elon is going beyond just having that networking tool and instead is involving himself directly in donations to the campaign makes a big difference. Look, whether we like it or not, the organized minority always rules the disorganized majority. We will always have a ruling class in the United States. And the problem, the huge problem that we've had is for a long time, our elites have been almost entirely leftists and globalists in their orientation. The fact that we're seeing guys like Elon Musk or David Sachs who are changing that, who are proving that there can be a counter elite, who see the progressive left as a challenge to the type of world, that the kind of vision that many of these tech entrepreneurs want to achieve. Elon Musk knows he's not going to Mars under someone like Joe Biden. He knows he
No.
might be able to under somebody like Trump.
Yep. In fact, I think that's what's really driving it because Elon Musk's pronouncements are always in reaction to something that to him is untenable. Assassination attempt, 45 million a month. His move of his two company headquarters, he's going to move them from California. The remaining two company headquarters, that because I think he has 5 or 6 companies, two of them are headquartered in California still. He's moving them to Texas after California passed legislation that basically requires teachers to keep their children's sexual orientation a secret from the parents. And he said, look, you can lose custody of your children in California to the state over something that they're going to outgrow. I'm moving my companies. He wants to move his employees and the companies themselves out of California to prevent his employees from becoming subject to having their children removed from their care over something that children outgrow. So it's not that I see Elon Musk as being red pilled in the traditional sense where he reads something or has something happen in his life and he's like, you know what, I'm a Republican. I no longer believe in leftist ideals. He's much more practical in his orientation. In the last 30 seconds or so here, anything else you want us to know about this? Because it's been a really momentous time, Oren.
Well, Elon Musk, of course, he had a child that went through transition. And so this is something that is deeply personal to him. Like you said, it's very practical. He recognizes the incredible danger of this ideology and how it can destroy lives and rob parents of their children. So, yes, I think in the most visceral way, this is something that is real for him. It's something that he has experience in and he wants to defeat.
You know what? I couldn't agree more. It's always such a pleasure to have you here. Oren McIntyre, author of The Total State, How Liberal Democracies Become Tyrannies. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and coming up after this SNC fast break, was Senator J.D. Vance the right choice for VP? I'll tell you more.